Okay, we've been trying to avoid making this video, but today has to be the day. It's something I don't like doing, something I don't want to do, especially in an election year, and that's swinging left. Aesthetically, at least, because I don't consider either Clinton actually on the left, but, Democrats. So Hillary Clinton, though, suffers from narcissism in a very similar way to Trump. And truly, it irks me to my core. I try to keep it on the low, but as she keeps forcing herself in the spotlight after her time as came and went 2 different times and she failed both, she eventually hit on a spot that I can't ignore, that being the situation in the Middle East, the ongoing protests, and the pro-Palestinian support, to which she had this to say about younger voters.
They don't know very much at all about the history of the Middle East, or frankly about history in many areas of the world, including in our own country. But with respect to the Middle East, they don't know that under the bringing together of the Israelis and the Palestinians by my husband, the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the then head of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, then the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat. An offer was made to the Palestinians for a state on 96% of the existing territory occupied by the Palestinians, with 4% of Israel to be given to reach 100% of the amount of territory that was hoped for.
Okay, so let's pretend that Hillary Clinton wasn't shipped out of a lab from some alien spaceship and she actually understands young people. Patronizing them is not how you in any way gain their support, and overinflating a terrible deal that your husband tried to make because he doesn't have many foreign successes doesn't give you some sort of authority on the matter, especially when you did absolutely nothing as Secretary of State. But instead of just attacking Hillary, I want to actually look at the 2000 Camp David Accords to explain why this is a very weak talking point you hear from right-wingers, Zionists, and those ready to defend the Clinton administration, however few people that may be. And from the Palestinian side, it actually starts with the Oslo Accords in '93, which wasn't a main Clinton thing, but something he did partially oversee after he took office, where neither Israel or the US would commit to a 2-state solution. Israel's prime minister did not believe that Palestinians could have statehood. It was not mentioned one time throughout the entire Accords, and Israel never lived up to their end of the deal here, with settlers ultimately massacring Palestinian civilians without withdrawing from the illegally occupied land, and then diminishing support and trust in this kind of process for the Palestinian side. And I bring that up so you can understand the relations, the low point of relations that was had between the two sides when Camp David was brought about by Bill Clinton. Camp David was rushed. It was informally put together, hastily and terribly organized, with Arafat on the Arab side already feeling ostracized by the Arab community just for going, while also not feeling fully accepted into the close Israeli-American alliance either, as they were also still keeping him on the outside looking in, though it is important to note all the concessions made to make this deal work came from the Arab side. Israel was not willing to budge past the bare minimum of we'll end the oppression, we'll end the occupation, with many friction points that they were unwilling to budge on, while Arafat came into this deal demanding the 1967 borders, historic Palestine. They wanted full right of return, that being the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. Everyone who was pushed out of their homes can come back. And by the end of the Accords, they accepted Israeli annexation of some of the West Bank. They accepted Israeli sovereignty over some neighborhoods in Jerusalem, ones that were not part of Israel before the Six-Day War in 1967. And they even agreed to limit the right of return to a symbolic number that protected Israel's demographic and security interests. This is more concessions than any Arab nation had ever been willing to make before, and Arab came to these accords willing to do it because he thought there would be negotiation and concessions on both sides. However, and this is hilariously what Hillary brought up and misrepresented also, Israel refused to do anything less than a 9-to-1 ratio in land swapping, with them taking over 9% of the illegally occupied land in the West Bank, with only 1% of Israel proper going back to the Palestinians. They would not give complete sovereignty to the third holiest Muslim shrine in Jerusalem and refused to do so, offering at most custodianship. So you guys keep it clean, but it's ours. And it seemed that many of these negotiations were made with that kind of goal, with a goal in mind, to have Palestinians agree to a inferior or just completely unfair deal, or to have them back out so optically you can blame them as, oh, we were going to give you 96% of Palestine and when the 96% of what they have them confined to at that time, and they're not willing to give them back any of their land. But with the terms, something that Arafat couldn't respectively agree to, and then go back to Palestinians and Arab nations and say, this is all the concessions we made, while they conceded nothing. And even Israeli Minister of Foreign Relations, who was there at Camp David and negotiating on the deal, said that if he was a Palestinian, he would have rejected the deal as well. It was a nightmare deal and something that was not fair for the Palestinians. The problem with the Accords were the unfair and unrealistic parameters set by Bill Clinton and Israel for Arafat to accept, while they were already in a position of being untrustworthy and on bad terms because of a failed Kurd and massacre a few years earlier, something Bill Clinton should have been apt enough to realize, but he's a Clinton. At the time, there was no public support for a two-state solution or Palestinian statehood from either party, from either America or Israel. And while Arafat is being ostracized from Arab nations, he's supposed to trust these two to get him a statehood where they're not publicly willing to come out and say they can have them. Now that we've discussed that, can anyone tell me one notable thing that Hillary Clinton did as Secretary of State? Any effect that she had on the Middle East? It was a problem when she came into the position. It was a problem when she left. ISIS was like 6 times worse. Just anything that gives her authority to where she feels like the need to that she has a place to speak on this, because it was a position that she was given by Obama because he felt bad for beating her. And all she's doing now is exaggerating terrible foreign policy shortcomings of her husband to patronize younger Americans. And she's the person who allowed Trump to get into office in the first place by being the most unelectable person of all time.